Alright, without much delay here, we're going to get right into discussing fireteam and squad tactics. So a lot of this information has been out there. It's in the public domain, so available to everybody. But the intent of this is to start off everybody with the same baseline of information. First thing we're going to cover, of course, is formations, starting with fireteam formations. First one, of course, is the column, text on screen, but verbatim. It permits rapid controlled movement, favors fire maneuver to the flanks, but is vulnerable to fire from the front and provides least firepower to the front and also rear. So the intent of this formation is to get from point A to point B quickly, often used when you are on a road march. Next one we have is a wedge, which permits rapid controlled movement, favors fire maneuver to the flanks, but is vulnerable to fire from front and provides least firepower to the front. So as you can see in the formation there, depending on where enemy contact originates from, you might have friendlies in your field of fire. So if enemies are, for example, oblique, you might be able to get 2, maybe 3 guns into the fight. If they're further enough away, you might be able to get 3 at any given point in time, but usually not 4. Next formations we have here are the skirmishers, which we have a skirmishers left and a skirmishers right. Typically, in order to remember that, we just look at the position of the assist. Skirmishers left is back into the left, skirmishers right back into the right. So this is a formation that provides the maximum firepower to the front and is used when the location and strength of the enemy are known during the assault, mopping up and crossing short open areas. As you can see, if contact originates from direct front or possibly rear, you are usually able to get all 4 guns into the fight at the same time. Okay, the echelon formation, again, left and right, provides heavy firepower to the front and echelon flank. So for example, with the echelon left, if your contact originates from an oblique angle to the left, you may be able to get 3 or 4 guns into the fight depending on their positioning. This formation is used to protect an open or exposed flank. In practice, it's not one I personally seen utilized very often. It's typically used in niche situations. Moving on from there, we have various squad formations. So first of all, we have a squad column. So as you see, fire team in a column with ready, team, fire and assist. And as we go through these formations, of course, try to be mindful as well of the positions of various fire team members. Alright, but back to the squad column. You have a fire team followed by the squad leader, 2 fire teams. The squad leader is capable of flexing around and positioning himself where necessary. Likewise with the squad line, you have the teams in a skirmishers formation. The squad leader, once again, can position himself where appropriate. Next 2 formations, you have a squad wedge. Fire teams are also in a wedge. Ready, team, fire, assist. And a squad V. Next thing we're going to talk about is conducting security holds. So when, for example, the squad is in a column and moving down a road, so here we see 1 rifle squad, fire team in front, followed by squad leader, followed by 2 fire teams. When they conduct a security hold, all the members are going to take a knee, and with the exception of the Marine on point and the one taking slack at the rear, in this case since the squad leader's position here, the front is that way towards the mountains, this is the rear. Otherwise, the rest of the members are going to take a knee and look outwards. Also worth mentioning that while the squad is on road march or moving in a squad column, it's advisable for each member to occasionally scan the surroundings, looking in the direction of intended movement, then periodically scanning off, for example, this rifleman off to the right, turning 180 degrees, looking back to make sure that everyone else is at the same interval and position and otherwise accounted for, before panning back to the direction of travel. The next security hold position we'll take a look at is with a fire team wedge. So here again you have ready, team, fire, and assist. So in a wedge formation, all of the members are going to point towards the outside of the formation and scan sectors. So for example, the rifleman here will be scanning the sector from left to right, right to left, and every so often turning his head to make sure that the fire team has not moved out of position and make sure that everyone is accounted for and safe. Of course, the rifleman is pointed usually in the direction of travel, and when you are in a fire team wedge, when you refer to directions, i.e. 12 o'clock, 3, 6, and 9, that is based off of the direction of travel. Otherwise, of course, you can also use azimuth bearings or just cardinal directions. Alright, so now we'll take a look at a squad wedge in a security hold. Once again, you see that all of the members of this rifle squad are pretty much pointed outwards towards the formation, with a few towards the rear, squad leader located centrally. Once again, 12 o'clock is direction of travel. Here is a niche formation called the squad semicircle, and pretty self-explanatory. The squad is laid out in a semicircle rather close. So this is something that can be used at like an assembly area or places where you don't expect imminent contact. It's generally good for keeping all the members of the squad close so that you can give a quick briefing before continuing. Alright, next concept, reaction to contact. So here we have a rifle squad moving from left to right down this MSR. So one fire team, followed by squad leader, followed by 2 other fire teams. Upon establishing contact from their left side, so up towards the top of the screen, the members are going to turn towards the direction of the contact. The Marines in the front element are going to take up positions to engage and lay down accurate fire on the contact, while upon the fire team leader or the squad leader's call, the Marines in the rear element will move up on line. Here you can see the fields of fire that the fire teams are laid out in. So once that contact has been neutralized, we would conduct a mop-up. So while the 2 fire teams on the right are maintaining that sector of fire, we split off 1 fire team to mop up the previous engagement area. So as they move perpendicular to the neutralized enemy forces, let's say the enemy squad approach us in a line and have all been neutralized in this area. This fire team would move up and perpendicular, so right now they are in a skirmishers formation. They can also conversely fan out into a line and sweep that engagement area from left to right. So as that is happening, the two fire teams at the linear axis here will shift their fire to the right as this fire team moves through. We don't want to place friendlies in a crossfire. This fire team here is more than capable of mopping up any threats that may remain to their immediate front. So once mop up is complete, they will form back up with the squad and continue movement. Something that can be done here is the squad leader can have the first two fire teams form back up into the squad column, start moving along down the road, while this fire team basically just rejoins the formation. Alright, next concept here, best shown on a map, is the reaction to an ambush. So here we have an example of a linear ambush with enemy positions up here. Here is their kill zone, which is where the enemy concentration of fire will be located, and a rifle squad moving from the southwest into the kill zone. Here we see that fire teams Alpha and Bravo have moved into the kill zone, and fire team Charlie has not yet reached the kill zone. When the enemy typically initiates contact, since this is an ambush, regardless of whether you are in a specific fire team or not, if you are caught in the kill zone, you immediately turn and assault. If this were a near ambush, you would start with a grenade volley. If this is a far ambush, you would immediately start to rush the enemy's positions in an attempt to dislodge them. If you are outside of the kill zone, again, whether part of your fire team is within or not, if you are outside of the kill zone, your task is to flank around and try to dislodge the enemy from their firing position up here. So we get to see that in motion. Alpha and Bravo are assaulting directly front, Charlie's flanking around, and dislodges the enemy from their position, thus defeating the linear ambush. Okay, in going over some fire and movement and fire and maneuver tactics, we will first be covering rushing, which is a fire and movement tactic. So the phrase here is: fire without movement is pointless, and movement without fire is dangerous. So it's important to have both in some capacity whenever possible. Alright, we have a team here in a skirmisher's position in this field. Once again, ready, team, fire, assist. So this would be a skirmisher's left. So in this case, the rear element will rise and rush forward past the first element, or another way to think of it is: I'm up, he sees me, I'm down. And they hit the deck. And once again, the rear element, now being the previously forward element, up, he sees me, I'm down. And of course, that rush would be repeated until you reassemble to use an alternate method of movement, i.e. in cover. Alright, next concept is bounding. This is a fire and maneuver tactic. So fire and movement is something that's done within an individual fire team. Fire and maneuver is something that's done with multiple units or elements, in this case fire teams. So we have that first fire team that's up in the field off to the right, and then we have another fire team back in the rear here. So once again, the fire team in the rear is going to move up and past the forward fire team. Once they are set, the fire team that is now in the rear, previously forward, is going to do the same thing and move up past the other fire team. And once again, this movement sequence is repeated until the fire teams are in cover, have reached their objective, and can utilize a different form of movement. Next concept to cover is an attack by fire. On here on the map here we have a rally point and a rifle squad. This is the objective and their attack by fire positions. So when conducting an attack by fire, the fire teams will move out into their firing positions, and here we show them with interlocking fields of fire, and the idea is to pretty inherently destroy the enemy with fire. Alright, so once that is done, and that can be typically done to either harass or neutralize external threats. Afterwards, optionally, they could either return to the rally point and get off the X and move off to a different follow-on objective or whatever it may be, or conduct an assault. Alright, so with the fire teams in the same position here, one fire team, in this case Bravo, serves as the support by fire element or the base of fire, and we're going to have Alpha and Charlie conducting the assault into the compound, being the diesel power plant here. So that is the field of fire for the SBF or base of fire element. We have Alpha and Charlie conducting bounding maneuver to the objective before making entry and clearing it out. And as you see, the element on security or support by fire is shifting their right limit as to not place friendlies in the crossfire. Okay, at this point we are going to discuss conducting an ambush. So right here we have the objective rally point marked out with your rifle squad and the various firing positions. So if you only have small arms available to you, you're going to conduct the ambush with small arms. Otherwise, if you have access to other sorts of equipment such as mines or claymores, this, that, and the other, if you have time, i.e. this is a deliberate ambush or an opportunity where you have just enough time to prep the kill zone, this would be the time to place mines and charges appropriately. Otherwise, the fire teams will move into their firing positions. So we have two along the long axis parallel to the kill zone, and we have one fire team down below that is going to achieve enflating fire with respect to target. So if you, instead of a typical fire team, have a machine gun team or two, that would be the place to put them so that they can achieve enflating fire with respect to target, one of the principles of pick 'em deep. So the kill zone, of course, is once again the area where the majority of fires are concentrated. Okay, so we have an enemy unit that is moving into the kill zone from the northeast along the MSR, and once they are in the kill zone, well, here's a different view of it. So once again, you have machine gun teams here achieving enflating fire. You have two fire teams up here that are able to concentrate fire into the kill zone, and upon initiating the ambush should be initiated on a signal, and typically with a closed bolt weapon, because they are inherently more reliable than charges and more reliable than open bolt weapons such as GPMGs. Anyhow, the enemy unit has now entered the kill zone, at which point the signal or the ambush is initiated with a closed bolt weapon, and ultimately threat is neutralized. Enemy unit is neutralized. From here, one fire team will break off and mop up the kill zone. So in this case, they are sweeping from northeast to southwest, and again, the other two fire teams are shifting their fields of fire as to not endanger friendly forces. Alright, mop-up is complete, and then at this point, all the fire teams will pull back to the objective rally point, where they then have the option of moving off. Okay, to cover defensive operations, first we're going to talk about 3 different defensive techniques, being a battle position, strong point, and perimeter defense. So the sequence of the defense, as shown on screen, we have the planning and preparation phase, where you estimate the situation, develop the engagement area, which is where you determine to kill the enemy, the execution phase, where you occupy the position, and decisive contact, where you gain and maintain enemy contact, disrupt, fix, maneuver, and finish the enemy. So we're not going to go into huge detail about a mobile defense or turning it into an offense. Right now we're going to focus on fields of fire and battle positions, whatnot. But basically the idea is offense is the decisive form of combat, and therefore a good combat leader seeks to turn a defensive situation into an offensive situation. Afterwards, of course, we consolidate and reorganize. Alright, so this slide here shows a squad in the defense utilizing battle positions. So the battle positions being the positions where the fire teams are located, and we have determined that this field here is the engagement area. This is where we are going to kill the enemy. The various fire teams have their fields of fire, which are somewhat overlapping, and the squad as well as the fire teams have a principal direction of fire. So principal direction of fire, whatever this azimuth bearing is, that is basically the center or their primary direction to engage in, and then they have, of course, their left limit, whatever bearing that is, and right limit. Here we have a squad in the defense, and so since this is just with the squad, in relation to this area, it might look a little bit sparse, but same idea. You are securing the perimeter, and ideally you have overlapping fields of fire. So from here, if we decided that this was key terrain that must be held, if at all possible beforehand, we would try to stage ammunition and supplies so that we could hold this position for an extended period of time, and we would try to better fortify the position to make it easier to defend. And with that, that is all the topics that we are going to cover in this slide deck today. Thanks for watching.